The target gaze of Mr. Donald Trump has moved away from one maritime choke point, that is Strait of Hormuz, to yet another one, that is Panama Canal. Donald Trump says that it was a mistake to give up the rights on Panama Canal in 1977, and now China wants to take over Panama Canal and he will not let it happen. But the question here is, what happened in 1977 that US decided to give the ownership, the authority of one of the biggest maritime trade routes, and why US thinks that China is trying to occupy it? And most importantly, is the choke point strategy yet the newest tool in the market to exert your geopolitical influence? Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session we are going to understand in detail first, where is Panama Canal, why it is important, why US left it in 1977 and what is the history behind it, and most importantly, why US has this suspicion that China is trying to take over it. Is this really true? Does it hold any water? Or it is just one of the ways that US is trying to register its presence on yet another maritime choke point? So let us begin with understanding that what exactly has happened. So Donald Trump is as of now criticizing the 1977 decision where Panama Canal was transferred to Panama. Now he is saying what US did was absolutely stupid, and the more important factor that we need to concentrate on is that China is trying to expand its influence and US will not let this happen. So this highlights 2 points for us. First, that how maritime trade routes, especially the strategic ones, are gaining momentum as a tool for geopolitical influence, and second, this is a new way where China and US are yet again back in the game ring. Now let us first understand the geographical location of what we are talking about, that is Panama Canal. When we are talking about Panama Canal, this is the one which connects, if you can see here, this is the connecting point between Atlantic Ocean on one side and Pacific Ocean on the other side. Now when we are specifically talking about Atlantic Ocean on one side, it is the Caribbean Sea. So if there is a question, you can clearly understand that the marginal sea present here is Caribbean Sea. Now the stretch of this whole canal is 82 kilometers and it has been situated across Isthmus of Panama. Now this is a technical term, so let's break that down as well. So when we are talking about isthmus, isthmus is a very narrow strip of land which is connecting two larger land masses and it has water on both sides. So if you see in this diagram, I think you will get a better idea. It is this isthmus that we are talking. It is connecting two large land masses, North American continent and South American continent, and it has water bodies on the both of the sides. So the Panama Canal has been made across this whole isthmus itself. Now why this canal is so important, what is the strategic significance here? Because this 82 kilometer canal is responsible for almost 6% global maritime trade, and this is where ships are able to save more than 13,000 kilometers because they do not have to go through the Cape Horn. So when we are talking about this whole movement from here, this is being saved. And if we are talking about transition and trade in this region where one wants to move from east coast to west coast and same for South American continent, this becomes very important. Now Panama Canal very critical for container trade, LNG and oil shipments, grain export, automobile trade, all of these where these continents are prominent in terms of export as well. And this is where Panama Canal serves a better motive, especially for US, because this gives connectivity between US East Coast and also Latin America. Now in this very context, the first thing that we have to establish here, when we are talking only about 6% of global maritime trade, this is also enough that if at all any disruption takes place here, then the freight costs will increase and global supply chains will be delayed and disrupted. So that is why the proper movement across Panama Canal is important for the whole of the global supply chain. But the bigger disruption that will be seen would be for the countries present right here. And that is why US is being too vocal about this, that how they want to ensure that China should not be coming here. We will be moving to discuss that how China might be marking its presence already in the region. But before that, let us go back and understand that if US had the authority, if US was the one who constructed this canal, then why did US had to give it back in 1977? Now this story did not start in 1900s, rather it began in 1881, where this canal project was originally taken by Ferdinand Lesseps. Now he was the architect who is known for constructing Suez Canal as well, and this is where they made an attempt to build a canal through the Isthmus of Panama. But unfortunately that attempt failed, and Panama project also failed because of multiple medical reasons such as spread of malaria, yellow fever, landslides, and also bigger factor here was technology. Now this is the time when this region saw more than 20,000 deaths as well. Then 1903 comes, and this is where US comes into the picture, because US is here to support one of the fighting parties, the usual strategy that US goes for. So US supports Panama's independence from Colombia, and while doing this, getting their own purpose resolved, they were the one who acquired the canal zone rights. Now, canal zone rights were given to US. 1914, US officially opened the canal, and the administration was present with this very country. So, from 1914, US was responsible for not just canal operation, the security, the administration, and the canal zone as well. And almost for a century, US had this control. But in 1977, US had to give up on the canal zone rights and the administration it had, and this is where Torrijos-Carter Treaties were signed. Jimmy Carter was the US president and Torrijos was the Panamanian leader who was present there. Now in this context, the question rises, what happened in 1977 that US had to give? So the first factor here was the sentiment again America was anti. And that was boiling up for a long time, but it heightened especially during 1970s. This is when Panama wanted sovereignty over its matters, economic resources, and this is also the time you have to remember, especially after 1945, I'm specifically talking about the Second World War, decolonization movement had gained momentum. Now what did US do here? US sought long-term regional stability while ensuring the neutrality around canal operation. So build on this context, 1977 treaty was signed, and 1999 Panama assumed the full control of the canal. So the country Panama who had the full control of the Panama Canal. Now this is where US President Donald Trump is saying the mistake happened. 1977, we shouldn't have given up our rights. If we had that, then we would have had the control of this maritime choke point, and probably they could have easily used to exert their geopolitical will on other countries, just like they have been trying on other maritime choke points. Now this is where we move to understand more about this whole situation, where we are also looking into that why it seems like that China is a threat and China is gaining presence, China is trying to control Panama Canal. So the reason US is concerned, they are legit. Why they are legit? Because Chinese linked companies, they have invested in multiple ports across the canal entrances, and Panama has joined the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. So that means expansion of Chinese investment will be further seen more in Panama, be it in logistics, ports or infrastructure. And a country that has known to go for the debt trap policy, this is a easily laid out path to gain control of Panama Canal. So what US is worried about, it is a very understood given the history of China and how things are unfolding. But at the same time, we have to recognize that this is not a fear for just US, but the globe itself. Why? Because if China establishes its presence there, it will not just be about canal. When they are gaining prominence at the ports, they will be gaining prominence in terms of logistic, shipping intelligence, economic leverage, and they can also go for dual use if at all conflicts arises. And what better position to be this close to US and have all these advantages. So as I said, the fears of US are in the right direction, they are in the right context. But as of now, the control of Panama Canal does not lie with China. It is only the investments around the ports that is happening, which might lead up to something in future. Just to clarify, there is no direct control, no authority of China present at Panama Canal as of now. Now, we have established that Panama Canal as a global choke point is yet another geopolitical flashpoint in making, especially if we are looking at US and China. But the question here is, if you look at the last 2 years, you will be able to understand that it is these maritime choke points that are becoming these global flashpoints. Starting with Strait of Hormuz, then we have to take in consideration the Red Sea, then we have to come to Panama Canal. So why is this happening? This is happening because waterways are also strategic. They are responsible for carrying the global trade, they are responsible for carrying energy supplies, they are important for the movement of the navy. And these are the choke points where it is not just these, it is also about the internet cables and so much more. Apart from that, these are the points which are most vulnerable if a conflict arises, if a war arises, and we have just seen it during the US-Iran war. That what can be done at a strait, how it can be controlled to manipulate, to put pressure on the countries. So if a country has control over the route, it enhances what kind of presence they have at the global stage. And US wants one global maritime choke point in their pocket so that they can exert their global influence, and this is what it seems like. Now when we are looking at global maritime choke points, we have many. We have Strait of Hormuz, we have Strait of Malacca, we have Turkish Straits, we have Suez Canal, Panama Canal, Bab el-Mandeb, and so many more. But this is where all of these also gain strategic significance. And when we are talking about from the context of India, when we are located, the choke points around us also gain prominence for us, not just in terms of trade, but what kind of influence we have. And in the time where the strategy, where the tool of the geopolitical wars is changing, we also have to look that very way. Because this clearly shows that this is an important matter for India as well, because we would want uninterrupted trade, we want energy security to be uninterrupted. For example, if we are talking about energy supplies for Venezuela, how that will be done? If there is interruption, India will be facing repercussions yet again. This shows us that how we have to reinforce a rule-based order where the focus is on free, open, Indo-Pacific and also the global trade routes. And this is where India has to understand that growing competition is not just about trade, it is about maritime infrastructure as well. And India has to not just duly register it, but work towards it as well. Now, I hope you have a fair clarity on the given topic. If you have any doubts, you can let me know in the comment section. Now, I'll be leaving you with a prelims practice question. Now, this is the question for today. Let me know the answer to this in the comment section. I'll be waiting for your answers. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.